far greater. You will recall the case of Thomas Connor, who was found not guilty by reason of insanity of the murder of Michael Hughes at Central Criminal Court recently. The voices told him to kill Mr. Hughes. And Gail Killalea of the Sunday Independent wrote an article recently about her friend Eugene, who was a nice man and a productive member of society until ravaged by the effects of schizophrenia. He stopped taking his medication, became deluded the devil was in his penis, and sexually assaulted a lady who pleaded that he be treated but not imprisoned. He is now in prison. The PNA has sought introduction of supervision orders or community treatment orders for many years. Such orders are based on the concept of an agreement between the treating consultant, psychiatrist and the patient that he or she will adhere to prescribed care, including the taking of medication, the attendance at day hospital or outpatient clinics, and being available to meet with his or her designated CMHN, an agreement to have blood tests to establish appropriate titer levels. In return for the commitment to compliance, the doctor agrees to the discharge of the patient. However, if the patient breaches the contract, he or she can be retaken to hospital. I know there is some resistance to this. I'm told that civil liberty groups apparently see it as infringing on the rights of the patient. I am not sure the families of either Mr. O'Connor or Mr. Connor or Mr. Hughes or others would agree, or indeed those mentally ill now incarcerated in prison. Clinicians worry that while the legislator may give them a responsibility, the HSE may not provide a required number of staff to make sure the policy is implementable. And some clinicians are said to be unhappy at the prospect of the added responsibility. This is hardly an acceptable position. Mental health care has moved from the strictures of institutional care to the provision of care in the least restrictive way possible. However, society is entitled to require that an appropriate balance is struck between the right of the severely mentally ill person to be treated in the least restrictive way possible and the right of families and the general public to their safety, and indeed the right of the mentally ill person to be protected against their illness or disease. In recent years, we have seen cases of parents killing children, children killing parents, persons killing strangers. Many of these cases have a common thread that the aggressor is mentally ill, was non-compliant with treatment prescribed, and if lucky, they end up as a patient in Central Mental Hospital in Dundrum, but many end up in prison. Community treatment orders or supervision orders will not prevent every such disaster, but will significantly reduce their occurrence. In many of our services today, patients are discharged from hospital at a very early point in their treatment, often because more acutely ill people need a bed. Patients, once discharged, are free to comply or to relapse. For those with severe psychosis, supervision orders are essential to their safety and that of the community. I am now calling on the Minister to introduce community treatment orders, supervision orders. I wrote to Mary Harney on this on Tuesday. Cuts in the travel allowance. IBEC have been very successful in generating an anti-public service sentiment in the general public, which has been reflected in the media by both journalists and moonlighting economists. Sometimes the facts are lost in the process. I do not have the knowledge or expertise to make a judgment on other public servants. I do accept that a cost-effective public service is a prerequisite for the country's economic well-being. I absolutely assert the quality of service given by our members across psychiatric, intellectual disability, dementia and other services, and indeed the efficiencies wrought from an already finely tuned service in the past 18 months. I must, however, point out the unique nature of the caring role and the daftness of some of those efficiencies. When the government's various agencies announced cuts in travel for public servants, you could nearly hear the cheering of our many critics. Of course, no attempt was made to scientifically analyse the clumsy approach of our managers. The impression was that public servants would be curtailed from attending unnecessary meetings and other functions. Again, I cannot speak for others, but I can identify some of the impact in nursing. Cavan Monaghan Mental Health Services have been held up as a model of the ideal mental health service. It is heavily community-oriented, with GPs and the general public have bought into the concept of community-based care on the basis of commitments to providing home-based services rather than hospital-based service. For the past 8 or 9 months, nurses' mileage has been reduced by 20%. However, managers have not identified what patients are not to be visited, and have not liaised with the GPs with the implications of the circular. As a result, our nurses have been providing services without being paid the full mileage allowance that they are entitled to. Management have passed the buck to the nurses and shirked their responsibilities. I want to congratulate the nurses for their forbearance, but I am left with no choice now but to issue an instruction as from the 1st of May that nurses provide only those services for which they are actually paid. Now, this will result in most nurses being confined to their offices several days per month. Economic madness. Management must now take responsibility for their policies and identify the patients to receive no visits or reduced visits. There is no doubt but that this policy is extremely damaging to mental health care in the community. It is only a matter of time before nurses will be explaining to the coroner's court why deceased clients of the service did not receive more regular visits. I have cautioned nurses, put your concerns in writing. Do not cancel any domiciliary visits of your own accord. Insist on your managers making the decision. Advise the consultant of same in writing. No nurse practitioner or manager should deviate from or interfere with the level of care prescribed or frequency of visits ordered. Colleagues, when the Minister and her colleagues speak at press conferences on Ardeshina, they laud the benefits of primary and community care over hospital. However, the engine of such care is the use of transport. Cutting travel for nurses runs directly in the face of all the principles of primary and community care. I am now calling the Minister and our HSE managers to reverse this policy for those in frontline care. Primary care is the government's panacea for all health service ills right now. Mental health issues are the fourth most common reason for persons seeking the assistance of a GP. Research published here and throughout the Western world highlights the need for adequate mental health initiatives at primary care level. And Vision for Change recommends that a mental health professional should be a member of the primary care team. Presentations have been made to the managers responsible for leading out on primary care, but to no avail. And the work of primary care psychiatric nurses in Ballymun, Cashel and Kerry has been demonstrated to be effective, economic and appropriate, but all to no avail. I have accused those managers of prejudice against mental health. What else can it be? When they ignore research, practice audits and evaluations, what hope is there? I turn now to your favourite topic, the pension levy. In September 2008, the transitional agreement towards 2016 between the social partners was published, setting out inter alia the following proposals on pay: 3.5% from the 1st of September 2009 and 2.5% from the 1st of June 2010. It also provided for payment of 5% of any award under benchmark, in this case for higher grades in nursing. In order to be entitled to any of these payments, workers were required to cooperate with ongoing change and modernisation, and unions to ensure industrial relations harmony. Management have now broken the agreement. Our government have walked away from their responsibilities under the agreement. They have sundered social partnership by imposing the so-called pension levy. The response of the trade union movement has been pitiful. First, we heard leaders threaten all manner of action. Then we noted discrete changes in language and emphasis, and in the end, capitulation. The PNA's position was and is clear. We voted and we agreed to join any like-minded unions in a serious campaign of action to remove the levy. Others wanted protests. One or two